The cars stopped. The engines ran until fuel ran out. People spent the night trapped where the road ended. Morning traffic moved normally through southern Finland. Commuters left for work before 6. The highway carried its usual volume: trucks, vans, passenger cars spaced at driving speed. Whether reports mentioned snow, no warnings were issued. Road services operated on standard winter protocols. By 8, the flow remained steady. Vehicles entered the E18 motorway between Helsinki and Turku without restriction. No digital signs indicated unusual conditions ahead. Salt trucks had passed through during the night. The pavement was wet but clear in most sections. The temperature hovered just below freezing. Traffic density increased as the workday began. Distances between vehicles compressed naturally during peak hours. Speed dropped from 100 to 80 kilometers per hour in heavier sections. This was normal. The road system was designed to handle this load. No one considered turning back. The E18 serves as the primary corridor between Finland's two largest urban centers. On a typical weekday, tens of thousands of vehicles use this route. Cargo transport, business travel, daily commuters, all depend on continuous flow. The road had handled winter conditions for decades. There was no reason to expect this day would be different. Weather stations recorded light snow beginning around 7. Accumulation rates were initially unremarkable. Forecasts predicted increasing snowfall through the morning, but nothing outside normal winter parameters. Road maintenance crews were prepared for standard winter operations. Additional equipment remained on standby but was not deployed. The snow began falling harder after 9. Wind came from the southwest, pushing accumulation across lanes faster than plows could clear. Visibility dropped below 100 meters in open stretches. Vehicles slowed further. The change happened gradually enough that no single moment felt like a threshold being crossed. The wind did not stop. Snow moved horizontally across the road surface, reforming in cleared sections within minutes. Trucks created white clouds that erased sight lines for cars behind them. Lane markings vanished under several centimeters of coverage. Drivers relied on the vehicle ahead to define the path forward. By 10, speed had fallen below 40 kilometers per hour in multiple sections. Vehicles bunched closer together. The gaps that allow recovery disappeared. One slowdown triggered another. The system began converting from flow to queue. What had been a stream of traffic was becoming a static line of stationary objects. Plows operated continuously, but could not stay ahead of accumulation. Each pass cleared the surface temporarily. Snow returned before the next truck arrived. The road was being buried at a rate faster than removal capacity. Meteorological conditions had exceeded infrastructure response capability. Wind speeds increased. Gusts exceeded 15 meters per second in exposed sections. Snow drifted across the highway in waves, creating uneven accumulation. Some areas remained relatively clear, while others developed banks that narrowed usable lane width. Visibility fluctuated between 50 meters and near zero, depending on wind direction and intensity. Drivers made individual calculations. Some reduced speed further. Others maintained pace, trusting the vehicle ahead. No unified information reached drivers about conditions elsewhere on the route. Each person navigated based on the few meters of visibility immediately available. The collective situation remained invisible to its participants. Highway authorities monitored conditions but did not close access. Traffic continued entering the E18 from both directions. Volume added to volume. The queue lengthened in both eastbound and westbound lanes. The decision-making process followed established protocols. Closure required specific thresholds to be met. Those thresholds were based on observed road conditions, not traffic flow patterns. Weather forecasts were updated. Snowfall rates exceeded predictions. Wind speeds increased. The combination produced whiteout conditions in exposed sections. Authorities discussed closure. Conference calls connected road service districts, police, and meteorological offices. Information was gathered. Options were evaluated. No immediate decision was made. By midday, Sections of highway had stopped moving entirely. Vehicles sat motionless in both directions for kilometers. New traffic continued joining from entrance ramps. There was no communication to drivers about the jam ahead. Digital signs remained blank or displayed standard winter driving messages. GPS navigation systems showed the route as open. Nothing indicated that the road had ceased functioning. The decision to close the highway came after 13:00. By then, thousands of vehicles were already stationary on the road. Entry points were blocked. No mechanism existed to reverse the flow or evacuate the trapped vehicles. The road had become a container. The closure prevented additional vehicles from entering, but it did nothing for those already inside. Radio stations began reporting the situation. News of the jam spread through social media and emergency service channels. Families tried to contact people they knew were traveling the route. Some calls went unanswered as phone batteries depleted or signals became unreliable. The scale of the entrapment was not immediately clear even to authorities. Initial estimates of affected vehicles were revised upward repeatedly throughout the afternoon. The gap between conditions developing and decisions being implemented created the trap. The road did not fail suddenly. It degraded incrementally until a critical density was reached. After that point, removal became impossible without external intervention. The system had no reverse gear. The E18 has no continuous shoulder in multiple sections. Vehicles occupied all available space. Emergency lanes were blocked by cars. Gaps between vehicles measured in centimeters. The road's design prioritized traffic flow under normal conditions. It did not account for static containment of its full capacity. Exits were spaced several kilometers apart. Most trapped vehicles were between exits, surrounded by other trapped vehicles. Leaving the road was not possible. Snow accumulated around stationary cars, hardening the entrapment. Some drivers attempted to reverse or maneuver onto shoulders. Most found themselves more stuck after trying. Emergency services could not reach the interior of the jam. Ambulances stopped at the edge of the blockage. Police vehicles could not penetrate the density. Rescue required people to walk between cars through heavy snow and wind. Response times stretched from minutes to hours. Location information became unreliable as callers described positions relative to other trapped vehicles rather than fixed landmarks. The road's capacity to move vehicles had been replaced by its capacity to hold them. Several thousand people were inside a space with no food distribution, no sanitation facilities, no medical access, and no plan for extraction. Fuel reserves in individual vehicles became the only source of heat. Those reserves were finite. Most people had left home that morning expecting a normal commute. Fuel tanks were at typical levels, enough for the planned journey, not for idling through the night. Some vehicles had nearly full tanks. Others were near empty. The distribution was random. Families with children rationed fuel more conservatively. Solo drivers sometimes kept engines running longer. People made calculations based on incomplete information. No one knew how long they would be trapped. Trucks carried more fuel but consumed it faster. Drivers shut down engines periodically to conserve supply. Smaller cars maintained heat more easily but had smaller tanks. Electric vehicles faced battery depletion. Hybrids operated until gasoline ran out, then relied on battery reserves. The variety of vehicle types created a variety of failure timelines. Communication between trapped drivers occurred through brief exchanges. Some people walked between cars asking for information or offering help. Most stayed inside their vehicles. The wind and snow discouraged movement. Visibility made walking dangerous. The risk of becoming separated from shelter outweighed the benefit of exploration. Temperatures dropped after sunset. Engines ran until tanks emptied. Some vehicles shared fuel with others. Most did not have enough to last through the night. The decision of when to shut off the engine became critical. Running it continuously meant earlier depletion. Cycling it on and off extended duration but allowed cold to penetrate during off periods. Cold entered cars as heating failed. People layered clothing. Some walked between vehicles looking for help or information. Visibility remained near zero. Movement risked separation from vehicles and from shelter. A few individuals attempted to walk toward exits or gas stations. Most underestimated the distance and the conditions. Medical events occurred. Heart symptoms, diabetic crises, cold exposure. Emergency calls came from inside the jam. Response teams could not reach patients. Helicopters could not operate in wind and snow. Evacuations required hours of walking through the blockage to reach ambulances waiting outside. Responders carried equipment on foot. Treatment began in the vehicles. Transport to hospitals took additional hours. People slept in seats. Some abandoned vehicles and walked kilometers through the storm to reach gas stations or homes. Others stayed, unsure if leaving was safer than remaining. No coordinated evacuation was attempted. The extraction was individual, slow, and incomplete. Those who left on foot walked through heavy snow between lanes of stopped traffic. Some reached help. Some returned to their cars. Some kept walking until they found shelter. Buses trapped in the jam held dozens of passengers. Fuel lasted longer in larger vehicles, but more people shared the space. Drivers tried to maintain calm. Some passengers had medication needs. Others had children. The collective resource management became a negotiation. People shared food. Some had emergency supplies in their cars. Most did not. Phone batteries depleted. Charging from vehicles only worked while engines ran. After fuel ended, communication ended. Updates from outside stopped reaching those inside. The jam became isolated. Authorities knew the location of the blockage but not the condition of individuals within it. By morning, the storm had passed. The road remained blocked. Recovery vehicles began clearing one lane. The removal of thousands of vehicles took most of the day. Some cars would not start after the cold. Others were buried too deeply to move without assistance. Tow trucks worked methodically from the edges inward. The final vehicles were extracted after nightfall on the second day. Policy changed. Highway authorities rewrote closure protocols. Thresholds for preemptive shutdown were lowered. Weather predictions replaced observed conditions as the trigger for action. The emphasis shifted from managing traffic during weather events to preventing traffic from entering conditions that could produce containment. Subsequent storms resulted in earlier closures. Roads were blocked before traffic accumulated. Complaints followed, closures deemed unnecessary economic disruption, freedom of movement restricted. The alternative, repetition of entrapment, was not acceptable. Public debate continued for months. Some argued the 2014 event was an anomaly. Others pointed to the absence of similar events since the policy change as evidence of success. The E18 event did not produce fatalities, but it demonstrated failure. A mobility system designed for flow had converted into a containment system without exits. The people inside had no option but to wait. Investigations examined decision timelines, communication failures, and infrastructure limitations. Reports were issued. Recommendations were implemented. Winter driving continued. Closures became routine. The highway remained a risk under specific conditions. Those conditions were now managed before traffic entered. The system had learned. The cost was access. Drivers adapted to the new reality. Weather forecasts became more important than road condition reports. Planning around potential closures replaced navigating through difficult conditions. Other regions studied the event. Similar protocols were adopted across Scandinavia and Northern Europe. The balance between mobility and safety shifted. Roads that had rarely closed began closing regularly. The idea that infrastructure should remain open under all conditions was replaced by acceptance that some conditions eliminate the option of safe passage. The 2014 jam became a reference point. When weather forecasts predicted similar conditions, closures were announced hours in advance. Traffic was rerouted or delayed. The highway remained empty while the storm passed. Afterward, it reopened. The system had incorporated failure into its operating logic.